low over Mistwood Lake, its pale light fractured by shifting banks of mist that crept across the water's surface like living breath. The waiting dock, a skeletal platform of rotted oak boards and rusting nails, extended into the lake like a bony finger pointed at some unseen horror. A chill wind sighed through the empty beams, carrying whispers that danced just beyond comprehension. The wood had lost its warmth years ago, its surface slick with dew and lichen that glowed faintly under the keening wind. Every splinter told a story of decay, every creak a testament to the weight of unspoken secrets buried beneath the shimmering veil of night. Elise Thorne paused at the threshold of the dock, her leather boots sinking slightly into the damp wood. The silver glow of her lantern revealed dozens of ragged footprints, deep impressions carved by weight that felt too deliberate for mere trespassers. She lifted her journal, fingers trembling as she scanned hastily scrawled notes on the curse of Captain Bale, a mariner said to have bound his crew to this restless place. Night had settled like a shroud, swallowing sound and light, and with each exhalation, the cold mist curled closer, promising revelations or ruin. Grief and determination warred within Elise's chest as she stepped forward. Memories of her sister's laughter, once bright and carefree, now echoed through her thoughts, like a distant song half remembered. That laughter had died beneath these same grey skies, claimed by unseen waters during a summer storm. Her research promised vindication, proof of ancient lore, but beneath that scholarly ambition lay a raw ache shaped by survivors' guilt. Every step carried the weight of questions she could not answer. And here, on this forsaken structure, she hoped to find both illumination and absolution. A sudden whisper brushed her ear, so soft she almost dismissed it as wind. "Why have you come?" it breathed, consonants curling like mist around her name. The lantern's flame trembled, sending shadows leaping across the weathered planks. Elise's pulse skipped. She gripped the journal tighter, its leather cover cool and reassuring against her palm. The whisper came again, this time more urgent, a breath of longing and lament. She paused, gaze scanning the inky horizon, wondering if she had awakened voices better left undisturbed. Tracing the footprints with a careful eye, Elise noticed that they led not only along the length of the dock, but beyond its terminus, dissolving into ripples on the water's glassy surface. Her lantern's beam danced over soggy rope coils and the remnants of broken crates, all encrusted with years of neglect. Every detail she photographed, every observation she recorded in her journal, felt like a piece of a puzzle she had chased half her life. Yet as darkness deepened, the margin for error narrowed, and she sensed that every discovery here carried a price. The wind gathered strength, carrying the scent of old timber, and something darker, something metallic and mournful. Elise's breath crystallized in the air, and she opened her notebook to a passage quoting a local fisherman's tale, that the doomed crew of the sea serpent lingered here, bound by sins they could not renounce. The journal entry described phantoms flickering at the edges of sight, voices that wept for forgiveness they could never earn. Elise underlined the final line twice. One must atone or be claimed forever. Heart pounding, she read aloud a verse attributed to Captain Bale, a prayer meant to appease the restless dead. Her voice, steadier than she expected, reverberated across the water. Spirits of the drowned, hear this plea. Let not your anguish anchor you to eternity. The words fell into the mist and vanished, carried away by currents she could not see. For a moment, all remained silent. Then a low creaking began beneath her boots, as if the dock itself murmured in response. Her pulse thundered. Had she spoken correctly, or invited something worse? As she advanced, a shape coalesced at the far end of the dock. Tall and gaunt, draped in tattered garments that fluttered even in the still air. The lantern trembled in her grasp, and the faint outline resolved into a hunched figure with hollow eyes that reflected nothing but emptiness. Elise swallowed. The words caught in her throat. She had trained herself to observe, to document. Now she struggled to remain objective. The figure took a step forward, footprints appearing where none had been before, joining the endless procession toward the lake. Memories of her sister's smile flickered through Elise's mind, warming her chest even amid the chill. She had promised to protect her sibling from everything cruel in the world, and now she stood face to face with cruelty's embodiment. The phantom paused, head tilting as though studying her resolve. Elise's hands fluttered to her necklace, a simple locket bearing her sister's portrait. A tremor rippled through her, an unspoken vow anchoring her feet to the warped planks. She would see this through, for her sister's memory, and for the souls forgotten here. The lantern's glow faltered as the fog thickened, coiling around Elise like a living shroud. A distant clang echoed metal on wood, yet no vessel lay moored, no anchor cast. She strained to peer through the gloom, but the mist resisted, swirling in patterns that seemed almost deliberate. Anxiety coiled within her, a cold knot that threatened to unhinge her composure. Nevertheless, she advanced, every nerve alight with anticipation and dread, each measured step a testament to her steadfast resolve. Phantom sailors emerged then, dozens of them, lining the dock's edges like silent sentinels. Their forms flickered between solidity and smoke, their faces etched with longing rather than malice. They extended gaunt hands, fingers tremulous as reeds, beseeching her for release. Yet their eyes burned with anguish too deep for words. Elise raised her lantern high to illuminate their plight, but the feeble flame seemed inadequate against the weight of so many trapped souls. She inhaled, determined to find the words that would free them. Drawing a steadying breath, she recited passages from her notes, lines meant to unravel the binding curse. "I release you from sorrow. I release you from pain," she intoned, voice clear above the murmur of water against wood. The sailors stirred, phantom mouths opening in silent chorus. The air pulsed as though alive, charged with centuries of regret. Elise felt the words resonate in her bones, each syllable a fragile key in a lock long rusted by time and neglect. But as hope rose within her, a darker force gathered at the dock's entrance. A silhouette appeared, broad-shouldered, imposing, wearing the tricorn hat of a captain long past. Captain August Bale, his figure a tapestry of shadows and salt-worn cloth. His presence sucked warmth from the air. Even the lantern's glow recoiled. He regarded Elise with a hollow laugh that echoed like a distant wave crashing against rock. The sailors recoiled, their forms wavering in deference and fear. Bale's voice, low and resonant, rolled across the dock. "You meddle in affairs beyond your ken, child of mortal tears." His gaze fixed on her locket, as if recognizing the mark of grief it bore. Elise's breath hitched. Guilt flared like embers in her heart. He advanced, each footstep leaving footprints without substance, as though etched into reality by dark will. The lantern flickered violently, casting dancing shadows that transformed the dock into a labyrinth of phantom limbs. She steadied herself against a wooden post, summoning courage from depths she scarcely knew she possessed. "I seek only to free those bound by your wrath," she declared, voice firm despite the tremor beneath. The captain paused, studying her with an inscrutable expression, as though weighing her resolve against the weight of his own sorrow. For a moment, the mist seemed to huff, granting a silent truce between seeker and sentinel. Then Bale's hook hand tapped against the planks, a rhythm of doom that thrummed through Elise's bones. Memories of her sister's laughter resurfaced then, brighter than lantern light, lending warmth to her trembling limbs. She envisioned that laughter carried on a summer breeze, untainted by fear or loss. It grounded her, reminding her why she had come to bring solace, not prove a point. The sailors clustered closer, their spectral forms quivering with anticipation. Elise closed her eyes, centering herself on compassion rather than conquest. When she opened them, her gaze met Bale's with an unexpected calm. "Your bitterness binds them," she said, voice soft yet unwavering. "Release your sorrow, and they may pass." The captain's hollow chest heaved, as though the mere suggestion unleashed an ocean of grief within him. His form flickered, garments rippling like water in storm. "I offered absolution once," he rasped. "Yet my betrayal was repaid with silence. My crew drowned in darkness, and I drowned with them." His words hung heavy in the mist, a confession carried on the wind. Lightning flashed across the lake's distant horizon, momentarily illuminating the dock in stark relief. The sailors lifted their heads, as though recognizing a kindred spark of defiance. Elise raised her lantern higher, its glow steadying into a warm beacon. "Then let forgiveness be your gift, Captain," she pleaded. "Not sacrifice, but mercy. Not chains, but freedom." The words echoed across the water, stirring ripples that traced from the dock's tip back to her feet, binding her fate to theirs inextricably. Bale's silhouette wavered, as if caught between hope and despair. His voice softened, wavering between accusation and longing. "What would you trade for their passage?" he murmured, tone both challenge and invitation. Elise's heart twinged at the weight of the question. Her sacrifice seemed written in stars she could not reach. The sailors pressed forward, their hollow forms glowing with spectral light, eyes imploring. The night held its breath as she considered the cruel bargain offered by a ghost captain's sorrow. The lantern's flame pulsed in time with Elise's heartbeat, its light expanding and contracting as if alive. She remembered her sister's final moments, the water's surface breaking as she reached out, silent screams swallowed by sudden ripples. Guilt flared anew, threatening to engulf her reason. Yet beneath the pain stirred a quiet resolve. She would not repeat history by trading one life for another. If mercy could break a curse, she would wield it even at her own peril. The air trembled around them, the mist swirling in eddies that revealed fragmented reflections of sky and soul. Elise set the lantern cradled in both hands, its light bright and unwavering, despite the roaring wind that crowned the dock. She spoke words not penned in any journal, but born from the depths of her heart. "I offer no life for theirs. I offer understanding. I offer forgiveness." The phrase hung between them, as though sealing an ancient pact forged in sorrow and hope. Captain Bale's silhouette trembled, the outline of his tricorn dissolving into the swirling mist. A hollow echo resonated as though centuries of rage were cracking within him. Then, unexpectedly, he knelt upon the boards, hook hand resting gently by his side, his head bowed as though weighed by grief and centuries of regret, and the sailors around him drifted closer, forms softening from smoke into glowing luminescence that thawed the frozen night. A gentle wind stirred the lantern's flame into a steady glow that pierced the darkness, illuminating the sailors' faces in soft morning smiles. Their forms shimmered, bodies shedding the veil of torment, until only faint outlines remained. Elise felt a warmth spread through her chest. The first warmth she had known here since grief had driven her to this dock. She watched as the trapped souls rose, as one, drifting beyond the dock's edge toward the open waters, their footsteps leaving no trace but a whisper of released anguish. As the clock at the distant chapel tolled midnight, the mist parted to reveal the lake's serene surface, now smooth as obsidian glass. A hush settled over the waiting dock, broken only by the gentle lapping of water beneath. Elise's lantern burned bright and solitary, a beacon acknowledging the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. She sensed, rather than saw, the departure of Captain Bale, a final bow of acknowledgement before vanishing into the depths of memory. Dawn's first light crept over the horizon, painting the sky in soft hues of rose and amber. The dock, once a mausoleum of sorrow, now lay quiet and unburdened. No footprints marked its length, no phantom forms lingered in the haze. Only the gentle sway of rope coils and the distant cry of waking gulls attested to the night's strange transcendence. Elise stood still, lantern lowered, tears glistening but no longer salty with regret, rather wet with release. She closed her journal, pausing to trace the words she had written in trembling ink. Each entry had charted the descent into terror and the ascent into compassion. Now, the pages felt lighter, as if the weight of grief had been transcribed into something greater, understanding. The lake before her shimmered with possibility rather than threat. It reflected not just the waning mist and the soft dawn, but the hope of healing carried across its glassy expanse. Memory of her sister's laughter returned, clearer now, mingling with the birdsong that heralded morning. Elise inhaled deeply, drawing in the crisp air of renewal. She felt the knot of guilt uncoil in her chest, replaced by a gentle calm that spoke of journeys begun and burdens laid to rest. The dock's timbers, though worn and broken, had borne witness to her transformation. And through that transformation, they too seemed reborn, freed from the curse that had bound them to endless night. Gathering her equipment, she turned to leave, one last glance at the silent expanse of water. The lantern's flame flickered in response, a companion guiding her back across the wood that had tested her resolve. Each footstep carried a whisper of farewell, not sorrow, but gratitude. The spirit she had freed had illuminated a path through darkness, teaching her that some truths are found only when one dares to confront the shadows within. At the dock's entrance, Elise paused once more, hands trembling as she replaced the lantern lid. Her breath formed silver clouds that drifted away on the morning breeze. She closed her eyes, feeling the world shift. Grief had not vanished, but it had been transformed into something softer, gentler, capable of guiding her toward new horizons. She had come seeking proof of an ancient curse. Instead, she found a deeper truth, that compassion carries its own power, capable of unlocking even the most entrenched sorrow. Stepping onto firmer ground, She felt the weight of countless eyes upon her, but those eyes no longer pleaded in torment. They watched in gratitude and relief, drifting into the morning light like petals carried on a stream. Elise's heart swelled with a bittersweet joy, the kind that comes when one releases what one loves most. She clutched the locket against her chest, feeling her sister's presence not as a shadow, but as a guiding warmth. The road ahead remained uncertain, mysteries swelling beyond her sight like hidden coves beneath the lake's surface. Yet, as she made her way back through the trees, her footsteps rang with certainty, born of compassion. The waiting dock, now quiet and unblemished by spectral lament, receded behind her. In its place remained a promise that even in places hollowed by sorrow, light can return when one offers understanding instead of vengeance. The morning sun pierced gaps in the canopy, gilding dew-drenched ferns and silvery spiderwebs. Elise inhaled the scent of pine and earth, each breath a tonic for a heart long weighed down by guilt. She paused at the forest's edge, turning back only once to glimpse the dock, now a silhouette against the brightening sky. In that moment, she felt the spirit's farewell settle into her bones, a quiet benediction urging her onward. Days later, Elise presented her findings at a small gathering of scholars and locals in the nearby village. But her words bore a gentler tone than expected. She spoke not only of curses and restless souls, but of empathy and healing. She shared her belief that sometimes the most potent exorcism is forgiveness, offered without expectation of reward. The villagers listened, eyes bright, as she recounted how compassion had shone its own cleansing light upon ancient grief. In the weeks that followed, the legend of the waiting dock transformed. Fishermen no longer avoided its planks. Children dared one another to venture to its end at dawn. Visitors left small tokens, flowers, folded paper boats, carved trinkets, as offerings of respect. The dock remained weathered, but its aura shifted from dread to reverence. Even the mist that once bore mournful whispers now drifted like a gentle veil, softening the world rather than concealing its terrors. Elise returned once more, lantern in hand. Though she no longer needed its glow to guide her, she walked the boards in daylight, each step measured and mindful. Rather than footprints carved by anguish, her boots now pressed soft indentations into the wood as though smoothing its scars. She paused at the dock's tip, gazing across the lake where the sun glinted like hope incarnate. In that reflection, she saw not only the world around her, but the contours of her own heart reborn. She left behind a final entry in her journal, a verse she had composed among the phantom voices, woven with threads of sorrow and redemption. "May this dock stand as testament," she wrote, "to the power of mercy and the truth that compassion unbinds even the heaviest chains." Slipping the journal into a hollowed post at the dock's base, she secured it with silent prayer. It would become another offering, waiting for the next seeker guided by grief and curiosity to discover. As she retraced her path through the forest, a solitary gull soared overhead, its cry a benediction more powerful than any prayer. Elise smiled, the locket warm against her heart, and felt her sister's laughter swirl among the treetops once more. The world beyond Mistwood Lake beckoned, brimming with unsolved mysteries and quiet wonders. She carried with her not only scholarly certitude, but the deeper knowledge that healing often begins where fear ends. The horizon stretched endless and golden, and Elise walked forward into that promise, each stride a testament to the journey she had undertaken. The waiting dock receded into memory, but its lessons remained etched in her soul. That redemption flourishes when we confront our own sorrow, and that every curse contains its own key in the tenderness we offer another. In this newfound clarity, she discovered that the truest stories are those that transform both teller and listener. Later, scholars would debate her methods and nicknames: the compassionate folklorist, the light-bearer of Mistwood. But Elise cared little for titles. What mattered was the knowledge that even the deepest wounds can become guides toward understanding and grace. She would continue her journeys, seeking other places weighed by untold grief, offering lantern light in exchange for forgiveness. Each story would begin with shadows, but end beyond them, where hope and healing converge. And so, on nights when the moon hovers low and mist drapes the water in spectral hues, whispers still drift across Mistwood Lake, gentle as a lullaby. They speak of a scholar who dared to listen, who faced the marrow-deep darkness with compassion as her lantern. They remind us that true horror lies not in the unknown, but in hearts that cling to bitterness, and that the greatest courage is found in choosing mercy when vengeance beckons. In that choice, every soul finds release.